open wider to the outside world, we should promote the resumption of business and develop diversified international markets. Premier Li Keqiang has stated that we should adhere to opening up and stabilize foreign investment and foreign trade with diversified measures. This is also today's topic. We have with us Director General Li Xinqian from the Foreign Trade Department and Director General Zong Changqing from the Foreign Investment Department of the Ministry of Commerce to share with us information on the export insurance and export support measures, and to take your questions. First, some updates on the epidemic in the 24 hours of March the 12th. Across provinces, municipalities, and Xinjiang Production and Construction Corp, new confirmed cases 8, new deaths 7, including 6 from Hubei Province, 1 from Shandong Province, new suspected cases 33. On the day, those newly cured and discharged 1,318, of medical observation 2,483. Severe cases were reduced by 237. As of 24 o'clock of March the 12th, according to data from provinces, municipalities, and the Xinjiang Production Construction Corp, remaining confirmed cases 13,526, including 4,020 severe cases. Cumulatively cured and discharged from hospitals 64,111. Cumulative deaths 3,176. Cumulatively reported confirmed cases 80,813. Remaining suspected cases 147. Cumulatively traced close contacts 678,088. Those still under medical observation 12,161. Hubei Province, new confirmed cases 5, all from Wuhan. Newly cured and discharged from hospitals 1,255, including 1,103 in Wuhan. New deaths 6, all from Wuhan. Remaining confirmed cases 13,171, including 12,358 in Wuhan, including 3,948 severe cases, among which 3,793 from Wuhan. Cumulatively cured and discharged from hospitals 51,553, including 35,197 from Wuhan. Cumulative deaths 3,062, including 2,436 from Wuhan. Cumulatively confirmed cases 67,786, including 49,991 from Wuhan. New suspected case 1 from Wuhan. Remaining suspected cases 49, including 44 from Wuhan. In the 24 hours of March the 12th, newly reported imported confirmed cases 3, 2 in Shanghai, 1 in Beijing. As of 24 o'clock March the 12th, cumulatively reported imported confirmed cases 88. From Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, cumulatively reported confirmed cases 119, including 131 in Hong Kong, 10 in Macau SAR, and 49 in the Taiwan region. Apart from Hubei Province, in other provinces, new confirmed cases 3, all from imported cases, new suspected cases 32, new deaths 1. Severe cases were reduced by 5. As of yesterday, from 21 provinces, Xinjiang Production and Construction Corp, for 14 consecutive days, there were no new confirmed cases. And in 6 provinces, there were no new local cases. The development is positive. We have achieved phasal success. Now we'd like to take questions from the floor. You may ask questions related to today's topic, and please identify yourself before you ask your question. Journalist from the first row on the right side. Thank you. With CNR of the CCTV group, we've noticed that impacted by epidemic in the first 2 months, foreign trade reduced by 9.6%. Now the epidemic is already spreading across the globe. So what is your forecast on the annual outlook of foreign trade? I'd like to ask DG Li Xintian to take the question. Thank you for the question. Dented by the epidemic or pandemic and the Spring Festival, the resumption of business of foreign invested business have been later than previous years. And also because of the logistic blocks and the international travel restrictions, there has been some dent on the compliance of the contracts and orders. In the first 2 months, the total foreign trade value was 4.21 trillion RMB, a decrease of 9.6%. In February, export has shown a decrease in 2 digits. As the epidemic is ebbing in China, the Chinese government has adopted an array of measures to stabilize foreign trade. The measures are being implemented, and we are seeing positive outcomes. According to our data, foreign invested business are accelerating the resumption of business. Their honoring of contracts have been on the rise in Zhejiang, Jiangsu, Shanghai, and other provinces and cities with an intensity of foreign business. The flagship businesses have already resumed their business for this year. Foreign trade and the foreign business are faced with complicated challenges. Uncertainties have been on the rise. In the international context, the epidemic has become a pandemic. 120 countries have seen confirmed cases. The WHO believes COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic. Global economy is faced with a great downward pressure. International finance and the energy markets have seen downward trending. International demand is faced with new uncertainties. In the Baltic, the BDR index compared with the peak in last September saw a decrease of 75%. In domestic environment, shortage in demand will also put pressure on importation. In February, the PMI of manufacturing industry was only 35.7%, a decrease of 10.3 percentage points compared with the previous year. That was a record low. Meanwhile, we should also notice that China's foreign trade enjoys great potential, flexibility, competitiveness, and a stable supply chain, industry chain. The ingenuity, innovation of the businesses have facilitated their market exploration. The overall trend of a positive development remains unchanged. We will follow the deployment from the central government and the CPC Central Committee and implement the policies to stabilize foreign trade and investment. Will collaborate with governments at all levels and foreign business. We are convinced that we can stabilize foreign trade. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the first row on the right side. Thank you. With Xinhua News Agency. Since the beginning of the year, what has been the attraction of foreign investment? The epidemic is spreading globally. What might be its impact on our attraction of foreign investment?
Mr. Zong, to answer the question, please. Thank you for your question. According to data from the Ministry of Commerce, this year, in February, we actually used foreign investment as over 100 billion RMB yuan, and this was a major reduction year on year. And the US dollar denominated foreign investment was dropped by 10.4%. While the utilization of the RMB denominated investment up by 4%, while the US dollar denominated foreign investment was dropped by 25.6%. A major reason for such shift is the pandemic and the spring holiday break, as the holiday break led to some suspension in the goods and the people movement, and also the investors are adopting an attitude of wait and see. In terms of the structure, in January and February, there are three positive trends in attracting investment. The first is the high-tech industry continues to attract investment. In the first 2 months, the high-tech sector has attracted 2.2% increase in terms of the investment. In particular, the pharmaceutical and medical device manufacturing sectors and the e-commerce sector have seen 6.7%, 139.7%, 30.5%, and 49.8% respectively. The second feature is that the foreign investment is on the rise. In Shanghai Free Trade Zone, we can see such increase. In Hainan and Zhejiang Free Trade Zone special experimental zones, we can also see a great increase in terms of the percentage in attracting the foreign investment. And the third positive trend is that the inward investment from the Belt and Road countries are also on the rise. In recent years, China is constantly expanding the opening up and optimizing the business environment. While the global FDI is on decline, China's utilization of foreign investment is on the rise, and we are the second largest destination for FDI. According to the world data, for 4 years in a row, the global FDI has been dropped continuously. Yet, in the year 2019, China's attraction of foreign investment reached 141.2 billion US dollars, and China's proportion in the global FDI was 6.7% in the year 2015, but last year it was 10.1%. So this is indeed a hard-won result. According to the UN statistics, affected by the pandemic, this year's FDI will drop for another year, and the range is somewhere between 5 to 15%. The global FDI is shrinking, and there's a more severe competition to attract FDI, and also the downward economic trend in the world has complicated the FDI attraction. And indeed, China is faced with an arduous task to attract FDI. President Xi Jinping emphasizes that at this crucial stage, we need to adopt a long-term perspective to view and deal with the situation. And Premier Li Keqiang points out that despite the mounting difficulties, we should make every effort to strive for more FDI. So the central government and the Central Committee of CPC are working out measures to offset the negative impact of the pandemic. That's why 6 major policy measures have been worked out. In general, the positive trend of China's economy will remain unchanged. And in terms of the supporting infrastructure development, the human resource development, and etc., will remain unchanged. And the expectation and the confidence in China's long-term economic growth from the foreign investors remain unchanged. So we have the will and the capacity to fulfill the targets and implement the policy instructions. Let's continue on the left, on the front row, the second reporter, please. Thank you. With Hong Kong Economic Herald, just now it was mentioned that the export in the January and February was on the drop and affected by the pandemic. The foreign trade, especially the export companies, are faced with major pressure. So how to deal with it? We will have Mr. Li to answer the question. Thank you. For years, foreign trade companies are faced with difficulties like difficult and expensive access to finance or financing. Since the outbreak of the pandemic, the foreign trade companies have been challenged with similar problems, and they are faced with cash strain. So, to deal with the difficulty, we find that the difficult access to financing is more pressing than the expensive access to financing. So we need to adopt a well-coordinated approach to address the problem in order to help the foreign trade companies to deal with the pressure. We have come up with 3 policy measures. The first one is to lend more so that companies can receive more funding. We are accelerating the implementation of the existing re-lending and financial support policies. Companies, including the foreign trade, are supported to resume their work and operation. We have coordinated the banks and the financial institutions to get in touch with the companies in need and optimize the lending procedure and also increase the lendings to these companies. We have pushed forward the relevant credit lending companies to optimize the policy financing and also the various measures or financial products to offer more lendings. Second, we have extended the mature period so that companies can be relieved from the repayment pressure. The SMEs and micro companies are given more support in this regard. They can enjoy some temporary arrangements to postpone the repayment. The lending term can be extended for another 3 to 6 months.
For the businesses that have been heavily hit by the epidemic, however, they have shown a good potential of further development. The financial institutions can contextualize arrangements with the hit businesses. Besides, Exim Bank will also exempt the February loan interest of SMEs from Hubei province and other heavily hit regions with a total of 600 million RMB. We'll also open some faster channels to ensure the funding can get in place quickly. Special events have to be dealt with specially. Urgency must be dealt urgently for the businesses that have been heavily hit by the epidemic, whereas they had urgent needs for the loans. The financial institutions can have faster tracks for the reviewing and approval of the loans so that they can get re-injected of the funds as quickly as possible. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the second row of the left side. With CCTV Group. On 23rd of February, on a video conference, President Xi stated that we must ensure that the overall situation of foreign trade and foreign investment must be stabilized. What will be the next step measures? I'd like to ask DG Zong Changqing to take the question. Thank you for your question. The Central Party Committee and the State Council attach great importance to foreign trade and investment stabilization. On 23rd of February, President Xi stated that the fundamentals must remain stabilized. And he chaired several political bureau standing committee meetings and emphasized the importance of such stabilization. As we open wider to the outside world, we must resume businesses incrementally and orderly and stabilize foreign trade and investment. On the 10th of March, Premier Li Keqiang chaired the standing committee meeting of the State Council and has adopted 6 measures. For the next steps, we will follow these measures. We will be goal and oriented and focused on the problems to ensure that the existing value can be stabilized, and we will also facilitate incremental values. We will focus on 5 areas. First, expand further to the outside world to stabilize foreign investment, in particular the negative list system for the foreign business entry, in particular in the pilot free trade zone, have a list of encouragement catalog and go into further depths with such measures. Second, consolidate the implementation of the measures. In recent years, the State Council has consecutively issued 4 policies to stabilize foreign investment. This year, in response to the epidemic, the State Council and other departments have adopted a couple of supportive measures to stabilize foreign investment. The urgent priority is to provide policy support so that the foreign businesses can resume business as quickly as possible and they can enjoy solid and real benefits. Third, leverage existing platforms. 218 economic development zones and 18 pilot free trade zones can be the good platforms and they can play a demonstration role. Fourth, promote investment through multilateral and bilateral channels. Give play to the role of CIIE and other major international exhibitions so as to promote investment. Fifth, optimize business environment. Implement foreign investment law and its supportive measures, establish foreign investment service system, and optimize the service systems, so as to attract more business and stabilize their operation in China. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the second row of the left side. Thank you, DG Me. With the CCTV Group on the 10th of March, on the Standing Committee of the State Council, it was proposed to further streamline the negative list of foreign investment. What is the progress? What might be the areas where we see further opening of the entry? I'd like to ask DG Zhong Changqing to answer the question. Thank you for your question. And the deployment of the State Council and the CPC Central Committee, NDRC, Ministry of Commerce, have been collaborating with relevant departments and initiated 2 negative lists revision for the nation and for free pilot zones. The pilot free trade zones. The revision to the negative list serves to stabilize foreign investment. It also served the long-term opening up of the country. This round of revisions focus on the 4 following aspects. First, the revision to 2 negative lists will only reduce items, will not add items. We will stabilize foreign investment as we open wider to the outside world. Second, it will be combined with the upgrading of industry structures, in particular the opening of the service sector to the outside world. Third, it will go along with the expansion of domestic demand so that foreign investment can better satisfy the diversified needs of Chinese people. Fourth, be proactive and be steady in areas where we do not think it is well conditioned to open the entire nation. We can give it a try in the pilot free trade zone. Once conditions allow, these can be rolled out across the country. On the 10th of March, on the Standing Committee meeting of the State Council, Premier Li Keqiang emphasized that for this year, we should promote the negative list utilization earlier than previous years. This is our voice to the international community that we are determined to open wider. We will collaborate with NDRC and other ministries to accelerate revision, follow the procedures. After its review and approval, we will publish it and disclose it to the international community. Thank you. Next question, please, journalist from the right side. With DE Caijing, we've noticed that influenced by the epidemic, the situation is ballooning in some countries. Will this dent the trade between China and these countries? Previously, there were concerns on the supply side from China. Now, with the epidemic becoming pandemic, will it influence the supply side of the global supply chain? I'd like to ask DG Li Xinqian to take the question. Thank you for your question. As COVID-19 is ballooning across the world, global economy is under downward pressure. The external environment for China is seeing more uncertainties. Our analysis on the supply and demand of the global supply chain is based on domestic foreign trade policy, and our approach is anchored on the stabilization of the fundamentals. We will resolve to implement the deployment of the State Council and the Central Party Committee. We will support the foreign business to resume their business as quickly as possible and realize their full capacity. We will support them so as to support the restoration of normal market orders. To these ends, we will do the 4 following jobs so as to provide effective support and help to foreign businesses. First, enhance system development. Bilateral trade system and mechanism will come into force, facilitate the development of pilot free trade zones. We'll promote the signing of free trade agreements with more countries.
We will have discussion and set up a working team to help create a favorable international environment. And second, to strengthen policy support. We will further improve the export rebate system and help the companies to reduce the pressure, increase the supply of funding, and help the companies to get access to finance. For companies who enjoy the available conditions, we will urge them to honor the contracts signed. Furthermore, we will help to reduce the tariff rate and also the policies for exports. And thirdly, we will set up a public service platform providing necessary legal and intelligence services to the companies, helping them to be engaged in the economic trade and promotion activities both at home and abroad. And fourthly, we will encourage innovation and development. We will help cultivate the new economic forms and development pathways. We will support the companies to set up overseas warehouses and establish a global network for conducting business. Okay, let's continue. On the right, on the third row, the first gentleman, please. Thank you. With the new media of China Media Group, I have a question from the netizens. The State Council has worked out foreign investment stabilizing policies. What are the details, and how about the SMEs? What are the policy measures to help them to overcome the difficulties? We will continue to have Mr. Li to answer the question. Thank you for your question. On behalf of the netizens, we are coordinating the pandemic containment and economic development. President Xi Jinping has instructed to stabilize the foreign investment. So on March the 10th, Premier Li Keqiang chaired a State Council meeting focusing on the ways to stabilize foreign investment. The policy measures worked out are well targeted and are designed to help the foreign trade companies, especially the SMEs, to deal with the current pressure and challenges like the rising cost and the cash strains. These policies are really very encouraging and helpful. Mainly, they cover three aspects. First, make full use of the export tax rebate policy. Apart from the two highs and one investment, all the other export products who have not been adequately rebated for tax for the tariff will be able to enjoy such treatment. And the second, the relevant financial institutions are encouraged to provide more lendings to the relevant companies. The repayment is extended, and for SMEs who enjoy promising prospect, they can negotiate with the financial institutions to enjoy more favorable conditions. And thirdly, the policy financial institutions are encouraged to come up with the counter-cycling measures, and the export guarantee institutions are encouraged to come up with more appropriate products and expand such financing support. For foreign trade companies, their risk exposure should be well covered. In general, these above-mentioned policies are focusing on the stabilization of the foreign investment and can also help to stabilize the expectations concerning FDI. At the moment, the Ministry of Commerce is working with the relevant agencies to come up with specific implementation rules and practices. We are creating synergy while implementing the detailed policy measures. It is our aim to implement the policies as early as possible so that companies can benefit from such policy measures. At the same time, in the light of the global developments in pandemic control and being aware that there could be new challenges emerging caused by the pandemic, we will closely follow the developments and come up with appropriate solutions. Thank you. On the right, on the third row, the third late gentleman, please. I'm with China Daily. We know that the catalog to encourage FDI is going to be revised and come up with the 9th version. So why is such a amendment is made and what are the details? We will have Mr. Zong to answer your question. Thank you for your question. The catalog to encourage FDI is an important tool to encourage the FDI. It is a very important policy tool. It has already been amended for 8 times since its establishment in the 1980s. The catalog has contributed to the synergy and coordinated growth in FDI. Last year, approved by the CPC Central Committee and the State Council, NDRC and the Ministry of Commerce released the catalog, including the nationwide catalog and the catalog for the central and western part of the country. And there are many articles contained in the catalog. The amendment to the catalog is conducted to stabilize the foreign direct investment, and also the current amendment is also conducted to deal with the pandemic. We encourage the FDI to invest in the weak links in China's industrial chain, especially in the underdeveloped areas. And second, such amendments are focusing on the capacity of the central and western part of the country and the northeast part of the country to take over the FDI and develop the relevant sectors. This is like a cascade practice to encourage economic growth. And thirdly, we hope such amendment can encourage and facilitate the supply side reform and better satisfy people's needs. For the next step, together with NDRC, the Ministry of Commerce will work with the relevant agencies and subnational authorities to amend the catalogs, and we will work for an early implementation of the newly amended catalogs. There have been some preferential treatment policies to encourage FDI. Such preferential treatment include the tariff-free for specific sectors and products, and also the land leasing price can be reduced up to the maximum of 70%.
and the industries in central and western China. Apart from the favorable policies mentioned above, they can also enjoy a further 15% of a tax deduction in the income tax. With these encouraging and favorable policies can help many foreign businesses to enjoy the favorable policies, reduce the cost to set off the impact from the epidemic. Besides, it can enhance the competitiveness of individual industry, improve supply chain, and in terms of the quality of the supply chain. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the third row on the left side. Thank you. With the cover news, we've noticed that there were reports saying that impacted by the epidemic, there were the cancellation of orders, the transfer of the contracts to other business partners in other countries. What might be the impact? What might be the response? I'd like to ask DG Li Xintian to take the question. Thank you for the question. Industries related to foreign trade is usually a long industry chain and connects both domestic and international markets. After the outbreak of COVID-19, this public health emergency has constituted major impact on foreign trade inevitably. The impact on foreign trade is mainly reflected in the latency of a resumption of business, the hindering of international logistics, the increase in the cost. Some foreign business found it difficult to comply with the contract's obligations, so they had to transfer some of their orders. Businesses may need to readjust their capacity across different countries. We think it is normal in foreign trade. To support businesses to respond to the epidemic impact, Ministry of Commerce has given full play to the mechanism of foreign trade and investment stabilization. A combination of measures in taxation, fiscal policies, and insurance policies have been adopted to promote foreign businesses to resume their business orderly, so as to stabilize the market, help them to realize their contract obligations. As the foreign businesses have been accelerating the resumption of business, foreign trade, supply chain, and production chain are now coming back to smooth running. The normal market mechanism is also gradually recovered. China will continue to collaborate with the trading partners to safeguard the global supply chain and production chain. We welcome businesses from around the world to collaborate with Chinese businesses on these fronts. Epidemic has a major impact on economic and social development, which should not be underestimated. However, we are confident China's trade has a great resilience and a big potential for further development. In particular, our business's ingenuity will promise the long-term positive growth. Meanwhile, most businesses still have great confidence and sustained strategy in investing in China. China's competitiveness in attracting foreign investment remain unchanged. Our opening up strategy is always consistent. We will always be popular land for attracting international investment. The international market is experiencing ups and downs and major changes, and this has spoken to the fact that China might be the best haven for the investment from around the world. Next question, please. Thank you. From Wenhuibao, Ministry of Commerce made a survey on 7,000 plus businesses, and 90% of the businesses are faced with the difficulty of cancellation of orders by the buyers and the uncollectible payables. Will these businesses face the pressure of the uncollectible payables? How can the Exim Bank and other policy banks help to deal with the challenge? Thank you for your question. Export insurance helps the foreign businesses to deal with the remittance challenges, help them to explore international market, and ensure the stable development of foreign trade. Recently, we've collaborated with Sinosure and made a large-scale survey. Many businesses said their orders have been cancelled. They were faced with the difficulties of uncollectible payables. The risks have been on the rise. It is urgent that we must get support from export insurers. On the 10th of March, on the Standing Committee meeting of the State Council, it was reviewed and approved that import and export insurers must play their role. Policy financial institutions need to help with the counter-cyclical adjustment. We also encourage the well-conditioned commercial insurers to carry out similar businesses of insurance so as to enhance the risk coverage by foreign businesses. Recently, Ministry of Commerce collaborated with Sinosure and jointly issued short-term export insurance supportive measures for the year 2020 so as to help foreign trade-related businesses to respond to the challenges brought by the epidemic. The short-term export insurance should be used by these foreign trade-related businesses. In 4 aspects, we will provide help. First, we will further expand the coverage of short-term insurance. For businesses heavily hit by the epidemic, key support will be lent. For those who should get insurance, must get insurance. Second, businesses impacted by the epidemic must enjoy highly efficient settlement of the claims. They should have streamlined application procedures. For those should be repaid, must be repaid quickly. Third, for SMEs who are engaged in foreign trade, the premium should be further reduced, and we also allow them to pay the premium at a later stage so as to alleviate their funding pressure. Fourth, expand the policy coverage so that more financial support can be channeled through insurers and banks. Thank you. Next question, please. The journalist from the 5th row on the right side. Thank you. With the CRI, I've noticed that in Europe, in North America, there has been the ballooning of the epidemic. So will this spring Guangdong transaction trade exhibition will be held as scheduled? I'd like to ask DG Li to take the question. Thank you for your interest in the Guangdong Expo. We know it is an important platform for opening up. It is like the thermometer of the foreign trade health. The 120th Guangdong Expo is in the process of preparation as scheduled. Down the road, Ministry of Commerce and the Guangdong provincial government will follow the guidance from the 10th of March Standing Committee meetings. Guidance, continue with our preparation, give full play to the role of this special expo, help businesses to get orders, expand the markets, and ensure stable market.
Thank you. Let's continue. On the right, on the fourth row, the reporter in black, please. Thank you. With Shenzhen Satellite TV, for the Ministry of Commerce, what are the measures and the work you have done to help the companies to resume their work? And how about those for the foreign companies? We will have Mr. Zhong to answer the question. Thank you. Support and help the foreign companies to resume their work has become the pressing task for the Ministry of Commerce. The Ministry is implementing the Central Committee and CPC and the State Council's instruction and making every effort to help the foreign companies to resume their production. First, we have improved the coordination mechanism and set up the information reporting system. We have strengthened coordination in this regard and help the companies to deal with the problems they are faced with in resuming the work. And second, we create synergy vertically. We have worked out relevant policy circulars to help the foreign companies to address the outstanding problems, and also relevant circulars to stabilize foreign investment and ensure the adequate supply of raw materials for production, as well as the measures to resume work and production. We have work and as a united one and help the companies to address the problems. Furthermore, we have created synergy among the stakeholders and help the companies to deal with the difficulties. For example, led by the Ministry of Commerce, 5 video conferences have been convened with the Chamber of Commerce in the US and in the EU, respectively. Such video conferences were attended by the relevant government agencies and business stakeholders. The video conferences have been well received. Also, we have helped the companies, the leading ones in the industrial chain, like Ericsson, Samsung, and etc., to help them solve the existing problems. Based on the information we have concerning the 10,000 major foreign companies by early March, the work resumption rate has been over 70%. Among them, 10% of them have already resumed their operation 100%, and 10% of them have the resumption rate between 90% to 100%, and 70% of the companies have exceeded over 70% of the resumption rate, and only less than 3% of the companies have not resumed their work and operation yet. Outside Hubei, over 40% of the foreign companies in the service sector have had over 70% of their resumption rate, and about 20% of the foreign companies in the service sector have already achieved 100% resumption, and 20% of the foreign companies have the resumption rate between 70 and 90%. For those lower than 30%, they only account for 20% of the total, and they are mainly the shopping malls and the large shops. According to a recent survey, 55% of the companies surveyed responded that it is still too early to forecast the negative impact caused by the pandemic, and 63% of the companies surveyed have the plan to expand their China investment in the year 2020. The fact is that multinationals with broad vision were not affected by the pandemic. Instead, they have accelerated their investment plans. For example, Costco, the retail giant, decides to set up the second flagship store in Shanghai. Toyota will work together with the China Mobile Group to set up an electronic vehicle plant, and Starbucks plans to set up the most sustainable coffee baking factory amounted to 129 million RMB yuan, which is the largest coffee baking workshop outside its U.S. headquarters. As far as I know, the signing ceremony was conducted this morning, and Premier Li Keqiang sent a congratulatory note. We are confident that a burgeoning Chinese major market will not be affected by a single pandemic. Okay, on the left, on the fifth row, the second journalist. Thank you. With CETV, we found that under the pressure of the pandemic and the international economic slowdown, some companies are faced with the problems of difficult foreign trade. So, how can the Ministry of Commerce help? Mr. Li to answer the question. Thank you for your question. The export tariff rebate is an important measure identified by the State Council's current meeting. This is an international practice, and it is in line with WTO rules. The adequate and timely export rebates help the Chinese companies to be engaged in international competition, and it is also an institutional support which should be enjoyed by the companies in foreign trade. Lately, we've conducted a large-scale questionnaire among the relevant companies, and the companies responded that they wish to have more export rebates. So the Standing Committee of the State Council had the meeting and decided that apart from the previous ones, more companies in foreign trade should be able to enjoy the export rebates in a timely and adequate manner. So the processing time should be reduced from 10 working days to 8 working days, a 20% reduction in the processing time. And such measures will help the foreign trade companies to be more easy to conduct the export services. Let's continue. On the right, on the fifth row, the reporter in white. Thank you. With China, People's Daily and Jiankang Times, Health Times. With the pandemic spreading, there's a shortage of supply in terms of the PPEs like masks. So, what are the measures that China have adopted to help overcome such gap? Thank you for your question. We will have Mr. Li to answer the question. Okay, so the pandemic is a public health emergency. The inventory or stockpile of the relevant countries is inadequate, so this has become a common phenomenon. With the spread of the pandemic, many countries find there are shortage of supply in such PPEs.
And they look forward assistance from China, or they want to have procurement from China. After the outbreak of the epidemic, the Chinese government made decisive resolute measures to expand the manufacturing capacity of businesses of medical supplies, and we saw a rapid increase in the production capacity and production volume of medical supplies. However, China is a country with a big population, and there is a great intensity of population in workplaces and the resident communities. So China is still faced with a shortage of medical supplies, masks, and other personal protective equipment. However, we are a country with a great sense of responsibility. So previously, we have been listening attentively to the needs and requirements from other countries, and we have provided timely assistance. When we were in need, many countries and international organizations helped us. We will always remember the grace of these countries with great gratitude. We have been expanding regional and international cooperation, sharing our experiences in the epidemic response as we overcame domestic difficulties. For other countries, in particular the countries hard hit by the pandemic, we have been pursuing at our best to provide assistance. For those who have suffered in the context of the epidemic, we can fully identify the pressure and the sorrowness. The Chinese government pays great attention to the export of medical supplies and resources. We are happy to see the export enterprises have been organizing the medical supply, masks, and other protective equipments to the international community. This is our contribution to international efforts in combating the pandemic. Thank you. Last question. Thank you. With Economic Daily, we've adopted some measures to reduce the tax and fees which can be enjoyed by domestic and international businesses. What is the percentage of the tax and fee cut? How can we ensure that these policies are well implemented? I'd like to ask DG Zong to take the question. Thank you for your question. Leveling playing field is an important aspect of the favorable business environment. It is also a major indicator for the foreign businesses to assess the attractiveness of a business environment. It is stipulated by our updated law that foreign businesses can enjoy the business as equals. The foreign business investment laws and its implementation measures have also stipulated clearly that in tax and fee cuts, domestic and foreign businesses should be treated as equals. On the 10th of March, on the Standing Committee meeting of the State Council, it was again pointed out that the recent favorable policies in tax and fee cut for the bailing out of businesses must be enjoyed equally by domestic and foreign businesses. This requirement is a targeted measure. It is not only on the paper, it carries great significance in this context. After the outbreak of the epidemic, to support business in difficulties, in particular the SMEs, in taxation, financial, social insurance, and employment policies, the country government, the departmental authorities and local governments have adopted an array of bailing out policies. In the existing 400,000 plus foreign businesses, 90% are SMEs. If we say we treat them as equals with domestic companies, it is fair to say that the majority of foreign businesses can enjoy the benefits from these favorable policies. In the 500,000 foreign trade-related businesses, 84,000 of these businesses is engaged in 40% of the total foreign trade value. So many of them can enjoy the favorable policies. Therefore, when we say we try to ensure that these foreign businesses can enjoy equal treatment, it is a policy that carries the most realistic significance. Down the road, we will focus on 4 areas to implement these bailing out favorable policies so that they can benefit more foreign business. First, advocacy. A good policy has to be known and understood. Second, we will improve the policy-related services. We will categorize the policies and disseminate the policies to the foreign trade-related businesses or foreign invested businesses. Third, we will set up a contact system, helping them to deal with difficulties should be the basis when we deliver these policies forth. Establish a well-running complaint system. The interministerial system should come into effect, address problems in certain departments and localities where the foreign businesses are not treated equally, and protect their legitimate rights and interests. Thank you. I'd like to thank the 2 guest speakers for taking questions on the stabilization of foreign trade and foreign investment in the context of the pandemic. Tomorrow, we will focus on the basic support provided to the vulnerable public. With that, we conclude today's press conference.